Regardless of whether you're making an accessible PDF or going the full Monty of doing it PDF UA, you need to provide the underlying information about the PDF to assistive technology. This is done by adjusting the document properties. This is a super important step that a lot of people who create PDFs forget to do. It's important because not only is it good for assistive technology, but it's useful for search engines to be able to find your PDFs among the billions of PDFs out there. To mess around with the document properties in Acrobat, go to File, Properties, or just click Command and D. The Document Properties dialog box appears. At the top, we have a row of tabs to choose from. The ones we'll be using for this tutorial are Description, Initial View, and Advanced. As you can see, all the properties we've added from Word have been provided when we export it, making life much easier for us. The first thing I want to change is the author. People who don't work for the government might not know who the hell OMB is. For all they know, it could mean otters making biscuits. Anyway, let's change this to Office of Management and Budget. Let's get rid of these quotes in the keywords area. We don't want this to be mistaken for one long sentence or something. Now click on the Initial View tab. In the middle of the dialog box, under the label Window Options, choose the drop-down labeled Show and select Document Title. This will change the section at the top of the PDF window from the ugly file name to the title inside the document properties. Finally, click on the Advanced tab. At the bottom of the alert window, under the label Reading Options, choose the last drop-down and ensure that it says English. This provides the entire document with a language attribute so screen readers don't decide to speak the document in a foreign language. We're done here, so just click OK. Note how the title at the top has changed from the ridiculous file name to that beautiful title of the document. Now let's save the document. Let's open the Tags pane from the left tray by clicking on the Tags icon. When there's tags in a document, you'll have a label that says Tags, and hopefully you'll have a drop-down arrow next to it. This just lets you know that there are tags in the document. The very next tag should be the root tag. This tag tells you that you're looking at a document. Anything other than something that tells you that you're looking at a document is incorrect. Since we're looking at the whole enchilada here and we're not looking at a section of it, this is clearly the incorrect tag to use. To change the section tag, we'll right-click on the tag. I want to select the last option, Properties. The Object Properties dialog box appears. If I want to make changes to the way this tag behaves, this is where I'm going to do that. Since I don't want the tag to behave like a section tag, I'll want to start there. On the label Type, choose the drop-down icon. All the tags are conveniently in alphabetical order. Note that they're also their human language equivalents. This is to help you to glean some understanding of the purpose of the tag you are about to use. Scroll up to the top and choose Document. Then close the Object Properties dialog box. I'm going to click and drag the H1 tag up towards the document tag I just created. Note that if I drop it when the black placement arrow is directly under the icon for document, it will be in the same order as the document tag, placing it directly after all these other tags. Instead, I want to nest it directly under the label of the tag itself. The placement arrow jumps inward to show that it's going to be placed under the document tag. Voila! My H1 tag is now at the very beginning of the PDF. I want to explain that the signatures belong to the people the document is from. Let's click on the nested arrows next to the P tag icons of the memorandum authors to get a better idea of what tags we're dealing with here. Now I have Daniel, his title, Vivek, and Vivek's title exposed. I know the second figure tag is Daniel's name because it becomes highlighted when I click on it. I'll click and drag Daniel's signature below his title. I just want it to appear directly after the P tag of Daniel's title. Now click and drag Vivek's signature, which is the third figure tag in the structure below his title. Now we'll save the document. When we save it, all the tags collapse under the parent tag, hiding the work we just did. This is important to note because in longer documents, we'll need to figure out a way to get back to the section we were working on. I'll show you some ways of doing that later in this tutorial. Let's move the date P tag under the signatures. I'll find the P tag associated with the date, referencing the box highlighting the content in the document when I click on the tag. No, that's Office. Obviously, that's where the office is physically located. Here it is, fourth P tag down. I know that the third figure tag is Vivek's signature, so I'll drag and drop this P tag directly under the figure tag icon. Let's take a gander at the paragraph under the H2. When I highlight it, I'm seeing 3 highlighted content boxes showing me that there's a break inside the tag. The EndNote reference number is causing the highlighted content box to break. I know this is a link to the EndNotes. When I collapse the P tag, I see that, in fact, there is a link tag in there. When you have a hyperlink in a PDF, you must use a link tag. the link tag must also contain what's called an object reference tag and explain what it's in reference to. In this case, it's the number 1. The object reference tag for hyperlinks will be labeled with the generic sales tag icon, but it references content on the page. In this case, it's the actual area the hyperlink is sitting in. I'm going to collapse this p tag. I know that this link actually refers to a bunch of endnotes, and all those endnotes are at the end of the second page. I'm going to click the EndNote tag and drag it to the very bottom of the tag structure. I'll drop it directly under the last P tag in the document, and I'll come back to this later. At this point, I'm going to save it again, and all the tags collapse. Expanding our structure again, let's find the H2 and see if this provides any better meaning to what's going on in the document. When I click on the H2, my document jumps to the content I select, bringing me back to the first page. By simply moving the first level heading, the signatures, and the date, I've already provided better meaning without really messing around with the content at all. In my opinion, it now goes in a logical order of what the most relevant information is on the page before we get to the second level heading. Now I'll try to accomplish that same goal after the H2. Let's take a look first at the L tag, which highlights our first list when I click on it. I can tell that all the content in the list, including the bullets, is covered in individual tags. But I can also tell from looking at the highlighted content boxes that each list item has its own tag associated with it. Inside the L tag, there's a bunch of LI tags, which represent list items. Inside of the list item, I see there is the content of the list, which is an L body tag or a list body tag. Inside the L body tag, I can tell that the content includes the bullet that explains what type of list this is, the actual content of my list item, and one of those EndNote reference numbers. This brings me to one of my biggest pet peeves with PDF accessibility. The specification for PDF states that providing labels for lists is optional, so authoring programs like Microsoft Word don't differentiate between what type of list it is. You could have definition lists, lists with no bullets, ordered lists, unordered lists, and so on, and in my opinion, if it's important enough to use a glyph to give purpose to a list, you should specify what that list type is. Technically speaking, if there's a way for assistive technology to ignore the bullets altogether in an unordered list, I believe that forcing people to hear the word bullet before every list item is cruel and unusual. So I'm going to separate the content from the bullets to provide greater meaning to the rest of the list. To do this, I'll right-click the LI tag and choose New Tag. And the New Tag dialog box, from the label type, I'll choose the drop-down and select Label. Then I'll click OK. Note that when I do this, the content of the list item collapses and a new tag is created. The tag that was created is not the human readable label we saw before, but rather LBL, which stands for label. I'll move the label tag directly under the first LI tag above the L body tag. Now select the label tag so it's highlighted in the tag tree. Move the cursor over to the first bullet and select it in the actual document. In the tag tree, the label tag is still highlighted, but it grays out. Right-click on the grayed out label tag and choose Create Tag from Selection. The bullet that we selected is now sitting pretty under the label tag. In the actual document, we can see that highlighted content boxes of the first list item are separated based on what the content is. I'll save it here for good measure. Now let's return to the first L tag in the structure tree and look at all of its children. Hold down the Option key on the Mac or the Alt key on the PC and click on the expand arrow next to the tag name. This exposes all the children of the L tag. I'm going to close the first list item because we just did that one, but I still need to fix these other 3 bullets in the list. Again, I'll right-click the LI tag and choose New Tag. Because the first tag I created was label, I don't need to change anything in this dialog box. Instead, I'll just click OK or hit Enter. Same thing happened where the tags collapsed and a new tag was created. Let's move the label tag into position, select it, and then move over to the actual document and select the second bullet. Now return to the grayed out label tag, right-click, and choose Create Tag from Selection. I don't want to waste time expanding tags, so this time I'll right-click the third list item's list body tag and choose New Tag. Then I'll just hit Enter instead of navigating all the way to the middle of the screen with my mouse. Here I can just move the label tag into place, select the tag, select the bullet, right-click, and choose Create Tag from Selection. Now let's take care of the last one. Now our unordered list has far better meaning to it because the relationship of the information that we're providing has better semantics. Come to think of it, I know I've heard something about info and relationship somewhere else. As expected, Word doesn't provide a label for the ordered list either. This is more egregious than an unordered list because the point of an ordered list is to provide the end user with the idea that some things have to be discussed in some sort of order. I mean, if this was a recipe for some kind of scientific experiment and the second item was used to make the item before it not explode, it's it's probably pretty important to say, I don't know, do this in order. Since our lists are more accessible, let's make sure that all the other stuff we're using is accessible too. Let's inspect our figure tags to make sure they all have their alternate text. The first figure tag in the document is the presidential seal. I'll right-click this and choose Properties. The Object Properties dialog box appears. I see that the alternate text field is populated with what this graphic is. It's using the information I provided when we made this thing in Word. I don't need to close this dialog box in order to inspect the other tags. I'll simply click on the second figure tag. Looks like this is Daniel's signature with alternate text provided from Word. Same with Vivek's signature. So I don't need to close and reopen this dialog box to inspect it, but there's some specific things to know when using it to make changes to the tag. For example, I'll add some helpful text to the alternate text field of the presidential seal. OMG, this is awesome. Now I'll click on another tag. When I click back on the presidential seal, note that the text I just added is missing. This is because in Acrobat, when you edit a field in the dialog box, you must confirm its input by moving to another field or closing the dialog box. So this time I'll add OMG, this is great, exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point 1. This time I'll tab out of the following field. Let's click on the next figure tag and then click back on the seal figure tag. We can see that my new and improved alternate text is still there because I confirmed its change after moving focus away from that field. It's actually not that helpful, so I'm just going to delete this extra text. Let's save it now so everything is good to go. The structure of a tag document provides better meaning to assistive technology. In order to expose the tags to assistive technology in a meaningful way, how the tags are used becomes just as important as the tags you decide to use. For example, I have these links that reference other information in the document. In my opinion, these should technically be explained to assistive technology that they're considered endnotes. ISO 32000, the specification for PDFs, does not require footnotes or endnotes to be placed anywhere specific in the logical structure of the document, leaving it up to the implementer to decide where they should go. However, it does specify which tags should be used for these sorts of tags if you use them and how to use them. According to 32000, the note tag is the most semantically appropriate tag to use. The note tag is used to describe an item of explanatory text that is referred to from within the body of the text. In this example, the EndNote reference number is the item of explanatory text. According to the specification, we are able to use a label tag to provide better context for this. The link tag brings us to somewhere else in the document. Therefore, we must use a reference tag to explain the functional purpose of the link tag. I don't feel like searching the tag tree to find out where this EndNote reference number is, so I'm going to do something different to find it. Double-click on one of the words that is near the EndNote reference number. I'll choose the word government. On the Tags pane, click on the Tags options and choose Find Tag from Selection. The tag with the associated content collapses. Since I'm going to explain how the link in the EndNote reference number refers to a note tag, I'll need to add some new tags. Right-click on the number 1 and choose New Tag. From the Type drop-down, select Note and click OK. Move the Note tag above the Link tag, but below the first Bankers box for this paragraph. Now right-click the Note tag and choose New Tag. Select the type Label and click OK or hit Enter. Nest the label tag inside the Note tag, making it a child of the Note tag. Now open the Link tag and move the Bankers box for the content with the number 1 under the Label tag. Right-click the Bankers box inside the Label tag and choose New Tag. Create a reference tag. Move the reference tag under the label tag so it becomes a sibling of the label tag. Now move the link tag inside the reference tag. Here's a good place to save. Let's do the second EndNote a little differently to show you another way of doing the same thing. You can find the next 4 links in our unordered list at the end of the first page. I'll select the word Wizard and click on the tag options in the tag pane. Select Find Tag from Selection, which brings us to the content in the tags pane. Right-click on the link tag and choose New Tag. In the New Tag dialog box, I know the name of the tag I want to create, so I'll simply type the word capital N-O-T-E, then I'll click OK. I'll just create the remaining tags I need for my note structure. I'll right-click the note tag and create another note tag. Select the second note tag we just created so it's highlighted. Click once more on the note tag. A box appears around it showing that it's now an editable field. Click once on the text to unhighlight it. Now double click on the word note so that only the word is highlighted between the pointy brackets. Now type out capital L B L and hit enter. The tag has been changed to a label tag. Let's create another note tag. Again, select it, click once again to make it editable. Double click the word inside the pointy brackets, and this time write out the word reference with a capital R. The reference tag is created and already highlighted. Hold down Shift and select the label tag above it. Move both of these tags inside the note tag. Now open the link tag and move the number 2 under our label tag and move the link tag under our reference tag. Now that this is finished, we can take the same approach to the remaining note tags and move on to that list of links I placed at the bottom of the second page a little earlier. Conceptually, I see this as a generic set of links. There's ample information elsewhere in the PDF explaining the purpose of what this section actually refers to, but if users end up browsing the links or lists in this document, I think it's fine if they just come across this list. Let's open the tag here. Despite the fact that this is clearly an ordered list, Word failed to export it as an actual list. This means that, once again, we'll need to correct Word's mistake by creating a proper list structure from scratch. To do this, I'm going to change the tag name EndNote, which doesn't exist in the PDF standard, to List. In the Object Properties dialog box, I'll choose the Type dropdown and select List. Next, I'll change the first P tag to a list body tag, since that's what the content has to sit in anyway. This will limit the amount of tags I need to move around later. Now I'll single click on the L body tag so it's editable and copy it using Command and C. Now I'll single click the following P tag, click it again to make it editable, and use Command and V to paste it. This changes it from a P tag to an L body tag. Let's just do the same thing for the remaining P tags. Let's make some label tags next. I'll just create them after each L body tag to make sure I have the right number of tags. The label and L body tags have to go inside of list items tags, so I'll make that next. Right click on the L tag and choose new tag. Then select list item from the type dropdown. Hit enter or press OK. Repeat this process 5 more times. Now select the first LI tag, hold down Shift and select the last LI tag to select all of them. Drag the selection into the L tag. I'll simply select the empty label tag and the L body tag with the content in it and move them into each LI tag. It's handy that the following tag is automatically selected after I move tags, so all I need to do is hold down Shift and select the next L body tag before I move it. Now that I have a proper list structure, I'll save it before creating those labels. It looks like the first number already conveniently has its own banker's box. I'll just move that into my first label tag. The next one isn't, so I'll select the label tag to highlight it. Then I'll select the number 2 in the list and right-click on the label tag, select Create Tag from Selection. I'll just do this for list items 3 through 6 now. We need to take note that color is being used in our documents, notably our links. Because PDF UA doesn't really cover color contrast, we must consider any other requirements for accessibility. Since this document is used on a federal website, it must adhere to Section 508, which has a color contrast requirement. If you haven't done so already, save the document before continuing. We're about to do something that will cause a bug to occur in Acrobat. We'll end up closing the PDF in a minute and reopening it because it'll be too much of a pain in the ass to fix it later. I'm going to close the tags pane for a second because the next part won't need it for a while. Open the tray on the right side of Acrobat to expose the Tool shortcut menu. Now choose Edit PDF. Boxes appear all over our document to show the specific content areas of our document. Anything with one of these dark outlines is something we've exposed as editable content and are represented in our tag tree. At this point, we can easily select the links without activating them. Select the EndNote reference number to highlight it. When you select it, the Format menu on the Edit PDF pane shows you all the options you can adjust. Single-click on the font color swatch in the Format pane. The Colors dialog box appears. Double-click on the hex color field and copy using Command and C. Then open your browser and go to the WebAIM Color Contrast Checker. I've included the link in the description below the video. In the field for the foreground color, paste the hex color you just copied using Command and V. Then tab out of it. I'm provided with a contrast ratio of 4.91 to 1. Because the text that is using this color is less than 14 points large, we care about the information under normal text. It seems to pass WCAG AA, which means we have met our requirement. If for some reason you have a requirement to meet AAA criteria, then you'd need to find a different color with a better contrast ratio. Back in our Acrobat document, I'm just going to close this dialog box because the color is fine for our needs. Let's make sure the text about the president is good to go. Select the text, click the swatch under Format, and copy the hex color using Command and C. Then go back to the browser and put that hex color into the foreground color field. Wow, that's even better than the last color. What I like about the WebAIM color contrast checker is that it actually provides a way for you to choose a lighter or darker value to meet your specific needs. I'm just going to verify that the color in our other links are all good in the hood as well. Once we're all set with making sure our colors pass the color contrast criteria, we can close the Edit PDF menu by clicking on the X in the toolbar or choosing Edit PDF and selecting the first option, Back to Document. Even though we didn't make any changes to the document in the Edit PDF menu, I want to show you that bug I mentioned earlier. Open up the Tags pane. Select the word Government before the EndNote reference number. And the Tag Options menu, choose Find Tag from Selection. We now have an empty Bankers box where the word Government should be. In fact, this is also happening to our H3 above it, and the P tag, and the Note tag as well, even though we only checked out the color of a couple pieces of text. What happened is that the content in our tag tree identified a change in the actual content. Since the change occurred in the content that was associated within the edit box surrounding the content we were looking at, any other content that is inside that box becomes affected. The result of formatting text in a PDF is for it to disappear from the tag structure altogether. Note that our figures aren't affected because they have their own content boxes. Now, we could go in and manually recreate the missing content, but since we didn't actually make any changes here, we should simply just revert to the last saved copy. So at this point, we'll just close the PDF and reopen it. When you get that warning about how your changes will be lost if you don't save them, choose Don't Save. Then just reopen the PDF. Now that our tag structure has a better organization and our color contrast requirements are met, the next thing we need to do is make sure that the links in the document actually do what they're supposed to do. Let's open all the links in the document. This one looks good. And so does this fedbizops.gov. It seems like BuyAccessible just gets redirected as section 508.gov. Technically, that's fine with me, and that's how they want to handle links that are associated with that web address. But it seems as though anything associated with the BuyAccessible website actually appears to be broken. The last link seems to go to a page telling the user that the blog has moved. We should probably just use the place that it moved to so we don't piss people off any more than they already will be after having to read a memo in a PDF. I've already gone ahead and found the links these things are supposed to go to. So let's edit the links in the document so users will be able to find the information they'll need without searching for it themselves. Our first one has to do with the BuyAccessible quick links, so I'll copy the URL and go back to the PDF. Now I want to click on Edit PDF. I can see all the dark borders around the text making it editable, but I'm not interested in the actual text content. I want to edit the hyperlinks. When PDFs get created, they're basically electronic printouts. The content in a PDF is stacked on layers, and that information is related to the code that creates the PDF. On the horizontal menu above the PDF document window, click on Link. From the drop-down menu, choose Add, Edit, Web, or Document Link. All the black boxes go away and changes to boxes that cover only the individual links within the PDF document. These boxes signify the physical links of our document. I can resize them and move them around the PDF wherever I want. Each of these link boxes are represented in our tag structure by the object reference tags. These tags reference actual objects in the PDF structure that are tagged separately. Let's go ahead and modify the third link so it goes somewhere useful. Double-click on the third EndNote and the List Properties dialog box appears. Select the second tab, Actions. In the Actions tab, we see two areas, Add an Action and Actions. Leave the first area alone and choose the Edit button. The Edit URL dialog box appears. Simply paste the link by choosing Command and V, then press OK. Click OK again to get out of the link properties. Now select the next web address for the fourth EndNote. Double-click on the fourth list item and select the Actions tab on the link properties. Again, click Edit. Paste in the URL and close out of these dialog boxes. Finally, let's change the blog link the same way. When we're finished editing the links, just close the Edit PDF pane and save the document. Let's take a closer look at those links in the tag tree we just changed when we edited the hyperlinks. Inside the tag tree, it looks like it's adding the word path to the end of the content depicting the URL. When you see the word path in your PDF, it means that there's a graphic element on the page that is providing actual content that is not being handled correctly. Microsoft products are notorious for including these things in PDFs, so it's something to watch out for. The path in this case is actually the underline of the URL itself. Since screen readers will read anything associated with a banker's box, users will actually hear the word path when the document is read back to them. We can see this happening on the other ones too, so chances are it's happening wherever we have an underline in our links. Looking at our first EndNote list item, I see that the path here has its own bankers box. This is an easy fix. Right-click on the bankers box and choose Change Tag to Artifact. An artifact is a special mechanism of PDF that makes content invisible that we don't want exposed to assistive technology. The Create Artifact dialog box appears, and we're presented with options for the type of artifact it is. Since assistive technology has their own ideas about how to deal with this sort of content, the type of artifact we use is important and should be available to them so they can deal with these artifacts their own special way. A page artifact includes content that are relevant to the page itself, like crop marks or color bars. A pagination artifact includes content that relates to page location, like repeating header or footer content or page numbers. A layout artifact includes purely cosmetic typographical or design elements such as footnote rules. Since this is an underline, it seems to be a typographical element, which makes this a layout artifact in my opinion. Note that the bankers box disappears. The next list item has a path inside its actual content, so it's going to be a little tricky to take care of. Select the bankers box with the culprit path shown in the content, then find the text that's highlighted in the PDF. Position the cursor after the text and select a URL so it doesn't activate the link. Back in the tag tree, right-click the bankers box that is now grayed out and choose Create Tag from Selection. The path receives its own bankers box, so now we can get rid of it. When we select its bankers box, we can see the underline is highlighted separate from the content itself in the link. Let's just separate these underlines from all the other URLs in this list real quick. As I explained during the Word video, when we use the proper styles to create a document, these styles get translated to tags in the PDF. The PDF specification already comes with a handy set of predefined tags. However, the specification allows the use of custom tags that are not native to PDF. This is done so authors are able to use tags that might have special capabilities that alter the way the PDF behaves. When Word creates a PDF, only some of the styles are associated to the built-in tags of PDF, and the rest of the styles are assigned custom tag names. When custom tags are used, the specification requires us to create a relationship between the made-up tags and the tags that are native to PDF. A lot of people who make PDFs simply take this approach to creating PDFs, even though the reason it's allowed is not to create a shortcut for people. In these videos, I've only showed you how to use the built-in tags, because I believe you should only use custom tags if you have a reason to do so. In my opinion, when I see PDFs with custom tags, I see a shitty product made by a lazy designer who clearly doesn't care about the quality of work attached to their names. Honestly, if you're using this shortcut, what other areas are you cutting corners in? When Word creates custom tags, the relationship to the real tags are made by mapping the role of the fake tags to the built-in tags. When we say role, we refer to the purpose of those tags. You can see the styles that got mapped to different tags by going to the Tag Options menu and choosing Edit Role Map. Expand the arrow next to the document roles in the Role Map dialog box. Note how some of these styles are irrelevant to our PDF because we never actually use them. But for whatever reason, Word felt it was important to give them alternatives anyway. I showed you how to use the proper tags to mark up this document, so we actually don't need any of these special tags. Let's just go through it and delete them. Simply click on the tags in this list and hit your delete key. When the dialog box appears, press enter. Just repeat this process until the role map list is empty. At this point, the PDF is a perfect example of what we should consider to be a properly tagged PDF. If you don't have a need to make a PDF ISO 14289 compliant, this is exactly the level of tagging you should be doing to your PDFs. In my opinion, Microsoft Word should have handled most of the work we had to do in this, and it's a good example of the areas they clearly need to improve upon when making an appropriately tagged PDF. If you were bothered by some of the things we had to do in here, like getting rid of those paths or creating label tags, I highly recommend you complain to Microsoft about addressing these problems. If you weren't bothered by the way things were handled, just wait until we take the steps necessary to make it ISO 14289 compliant, which is coming up next.